Four Absolutes of the Oxford Group. Absolute Love. Part 4. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. I'm excited to be going through another paragraph of the chapter Absolute Love from the book, What is the Oxford Group, with y'all. It's been a chapter that's been filled with a lot of relatable things and just a lot of fantastic information to really dissect and explore and expand upon. So we've been taking it a little bit slow with this one, and I think we'll get probably at least 2 more episodes out of just Absolute Love. So it's turned into quite a thing for it, and I hope y'all are enjoying it. I hope y'all are getting as much out of it as I am. We are, I am extremely grateful for everybody who's watching the videos, streaming the content, watching the shorts, commenting, liking, subscribing, following, all of that good stuff on all the platforms. Obviously, we're here on YouTube, on Spotify. We also are on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible. We have a Facebook page, X, Instagram, anything, anywhere you want to follow, we're pretty much there. So I hope that you guys are getting as much out of this as me. So we're going to go ahead. We'll get into the reading, and then we'll go through and we'll tear it apart a little bit. And this will probably be another 45, 50 minute one. And we'll kind of go from there. So this is, so here we go. This is What is the Oxford Group by the author is officially a layman with a pen. And we're reading about the 4th absolute mentioned in this book, the final absolute, the absolute which all others stem from, they say. And I tend to agree with. So here we go. Absolute love is wanted in the world today more than anything else. If civilization is not to decay utterly, it is our vital need. This is not pessimism. Consciousness that absolute Christ love only can save us is the most optimistic piece of honesty we can face. The majority of people will not face squarely even the most pressing problems. They hope that in some way an unexpected salvation will appear from somewhere, sometime, somehow, soon, and put the world's affairs perfectly straight. And, in consequence, with little or no effort on their part, they will be quite happy and comfortable again. But it is not quite so easy as all that to bring civilization at its ebb tide back to full flood of content, content, and prosperity. To make its scales balance again, the world needs to face its problems honestly and recognize what the power of Christ's love can do. How many people give more than a passing thought to the foolish administration of the world's or even their country's affairs, the ineffectiveness of godless governments and institutions and laws for which every individual is directly responsible as a citizen? Patriotism is not enough. Fearless, boundless love of God is the only key. There we go. Now, if you were listening along, there's a lot in that. There's a lot in that just one paragraph there, just like the last couple of episodes. This has been a very telling chapter as to how we are conducting ourselves today. What's amazing to me is these readings, like this book was published in 1934. This is almost 100 years old. And the things that we're talking about in this book, specifically in this chapter, are things that are still a problem for us today. There's still a consideration we have to have. There's still things that we are working through, especially right now. It's extremely relevant to right now that we are reading about absolute love and reading about how that applies to our lives and how that applies to the lives of those around us, our family members, our loved ones, our communities, our countrymen, right? There's a lot in this. So let's get into it. And the first line of this paragraph is, I feel like each paragraph is its own essay. Honestly, it's amazing. But the opening line of the paragraph was very, very important. And it was important because of the words they used and the way they worded it, right? So the opening line for this paragraph is, absolute love is wanted in the world today more than anything else. Now, first and foremost, that's so true. It's just, you hear about it all the time in the news, and people saying that love is the way, choose love, choose the, there's a lot of slogans that involve wanting love to be the way, right? Some would argue the proper application of love, maybe, or what does love actually mean? There's a lot of controversy going back and forth, right? But what we're talking about here is absolute love. And this first line of said, absolute love is wanted in the world today more than anything else. That's true today. But I think it's important that they opened it up with the word wanted. That's what I want to highlight, is they didn't say needed. Like it was like they did an assessment and like we prescribe it to the world, right? This opening line, at least, they use they bring in some more dynamics in the next line in this paragraph, but this opening one, they use the word wanted, and they didn't say essential, they didn't say vital here. They said the first thing is it is wanted. Now, how important is that, right? Yeah, they're not making an analysis and saying the world says we believe the world needs this. They're saying the world is actually asking for this thing. It is something that is actually requested by the world to be brought into it from our fellow man, from the God of your understanding, from the way you live your life, from you yourself, from your neighbors, from your community. Is people are asking for love to be the basis of everything, for people to come from a place of absolute love. Though I don't know if they realize that's what they're actually asking for. It's a beautiful thing that this paragraph actually puts it into this context. It puts it into this framework of absolute love and what that looks like for some people. So I found it very, very interesting that they use that. And it's just such a perfect statement for the world today. In any demographic, any ideology, in any religious or political affiliation, love is mentioned. Love is wanted. Love is requested. Love is actioned. And when I say that, we're not just talking about the objective word love only. There's a lot of variations of the word love, right? In the Bible, the fruits of the Spirit are all come from love, right? In Henry Drummond's book, The Greatest Thing in the World, he talks about, I think it's, oh man, I can't remember. Corinthians, he quotes from St. Paul, his letter to the Corinthians, where he talks about what love is, right? So love is this foundational thing that comes from God, and they relate it to this prism, right? Love is the white light that goes into the prism and splits into this rainbow of color. And that when you put love in and you split it, and what it splits up into is just this variety of traits and behaviors, right? So people are asking for love without saying love. They're asking for acceptance. They're asking for love in all different variations, and approval, and kindness, and brotherly love, and friendliness, and consideration, and compassion, and empathy, in truth, in reality. These are all love. These are all things people are asking for. These are all things that people want, that are craving to bring into this world, that they're asking to be made a part of themselves, right? These are all different types or different implementations of what love actually is. And it's very, very important. These are things that our society really is yearning for. And I can only imagine if this was written about in 1930s, right? The book was probably written from 1930 to 1933 and then published in 34 or whatever. What would they say about today? What do you think they would look at today and say, has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better? Are people craving love even more than they ever have been? As that distance from God, and their God, the God of everyone's understanding, whatever that might be for you, from distance from the universe, from their source, their energy, Mother Nature, whatever it is, right? Whatever you consider it, has that distance grown? Has that separation from God, from that source of love, increased? I would guess they'd probably say yes. And what's amazing is they tried to warn us about it. Tried to warn us about this or bring this up and say that's what we need to make sure we're bringing into the world 100 years ago. Longer than that. I mean, that's what the basis of Jesus's message was love, right? So it's we've been trying to get ourselves together for a long time on this one, and I don't know if we're making it or not, to be honest with you. I don't know if we're doing better, if we're making progress. Some would say yes, some would say no. I guess it's subjective, but with technology today, I feel as though we're putting more and more space between us and God. And that's a little scary. Honestly, that's a little bit intimidating. And I just relate to a lot of this wanting of love. I didn't know that's what I wanted, though. When I was in the midst of my addiction and in the midst of a really dark place in life, I didn't realize that's what I was looking for. I didn't realize acceptance and from other people was love. I didn't realize that peace of mind was love. I didn't realize serenity was love. I just knew that those were the things I wanted. I knew those were the things that I couldn't seem to actually get myself wrapped up in. I kept searching for them and I could never find them. And really what I was looking for was love. I was looking for love, and I was looking for that connection with a God of my understanding, because I had abandoned that many, many years ago. So this absolute love is wanted in the world today more than anything else. That was me. I was embodying that statement. I wanted it terribly, but I didn't even know. And I know so many today that is what they want as well. So the way they stated this in the first opening line of this paragraph, I just thought was very, very important. And because they say it's wanted. And then, so the next line is, if civilization is not to decay utterly, it is our vital need, right? Let me make sure I wrote all of that, right? And if civilization is not to decay utterly, it is our vital need. Meaning that, they're the need for absolute love to be brought into this world, for people to be receiving absolute love, to people be giving absolute love, is crucial. So now they're saying the world is asking for it, and also they're coming to the other side saying the world needs it. Like, this is the importance of absolute love being brought into this world is being emphasized, right? They were showing that there's not only a desire for people to be receiving of love in many forms, but there's an absolute need for the world to incorporate absolute love, to actually continue to grow and prosper and to continue to bring more of God into this world. Because if we don't, the world will decay, right? If civilization is not to decay, how many civilizations before us have? How many civilizations before us have gotten to this point of stepping away from God through technology and scientific advancement or this and that, the other thing? Not saying those things are bad, but when they replace understanding and a foundational belief in a God that is loving and kind, suddenly the soul of a country kind of goes out of it. Suddenly, that absolute love that's foundational to positivity and growth and kindness and compassion and care for each other is slowly removed. And it starts to decay and rot from the inside out because the soul of it's gone. Right? So they're showing like it's on two fronts. This needs to be practiced, not only because people want it and the world's asking for it and it's needed today, but the world's asking for it and people are looking for it and need it today, but also for society in general, it is needed. That is the prescription that they're giving. So where's the block, right? Where's the actual fall down on this? Because if it's being asked for, people are seeking it, and it's vital to the actual stopping of the decay of our society, why is it not showing up here, right? It's demonstrating the importance of this absolute love principle, because it's not just important to you. It's not just important to me. It's not just important for my relationship with God that I practice. It's important for my family that I practice it. It is important for my community that I practice it. It is important for my work colleagues that I practice this. It is important for my local government, for my federal government, for all of these things. It is crucial that individuals practice absolute love and bring that with them into the world, and to put that into every single interaction that they have. They're saying it is vital. It's not saying, hey, it'd be a good idea. It's vital to the existence, to the furthering, to the progression, and the healthy interaction between people and of mankind, right? So this whole thing is growing and changing, right? But we have to make sure we're putting into it what needs to be brought into it, right? This is just demonstrating the importance and presenting the fact that the only way to save mankind from itself is to have a God of our understanding that has a practice here of love, of not just regular love, but absolute love, right? So if we don't want to decay, if we don't want societies to rot, and I'm not just talking about one country, I'm talking about countries in general, I'm talking about interactions in general, I'm talking about anybody in any dynamic. If we don't want that to just turn into this unhealthy, only selfish and self-serving thing, we have to practice absolute love, right? And the line they follow this piece up with is, I love this too. So it's not pessimism. Consciousness of absolute Christ, that consciousness that absolute Christ love only can save us, is some of the most optimistic piece of honesty we can face. I'm sorry, I'm going to restate that. This is not pessimism. Consciousness that absolute Christ love only can save us is the most optimistic piece of honesty we can face. So I love that they put that there, because they're like, hey, society's going to decay if we don't incorporate absolute love. Now, this is not pessimism. This is actually just a stated fact. Look back through the history of the world. When you lose this soul of a nation, when you lose this soul of absolute love, when this foundational piece is gone, society crumbles upon itself, right? When people are taking actions out of hate and anger and selfishness and self-centeredness, right, and egotistical things, society falls apart, right? Because everyone's serving themselves. But so it's actually optimistic because we know what needs to happen. It's not pessimistic. This is just information that has been proven, but we do have a solution for it. That's the beautiful thing. But we need to make sure we're not lying to ourselves. It says it's piece of honesty we can face. Honesty is a key word here, right? We can't lie to ourselves. We have to realize the situation for what it is and what is going on. We can't just be delusional and just turn our heads, right? We can't abandon these things because we find it inconvenient to take a look at them, right? We have to actually actively put absolute love into all of our interactions in this world, or the same thing that's always happened will happen again. If you want different results, you got to take different actions. That's what they told me in recovery, and that's what I found to be true. So we have to continue to maintain this solution of absolute love, right? This is the beautiful thing. We have it. We know where we need to come from. We know the basis we need to be functioning from to actually have a way to save us from ourselves, right? To actually continue to be a loving society. And it's the practice of absolute love from a power of greater than ourselves, from that God of our understanding. We draw that, we practice that on a daily basis, right? So as much as that might sound a little negative, a little pessimistic, a little maybe even overwhelming, it's actually hopeful. Because what we see happening today doesn't mean it has to be the end of the world. Doesn't mean it has to be the end of a nation. Doesn't mean it have to be the end of people. Doesn't have to be the end of anything. We just have to reinvigorate it and realign ourselves with absolute love. Now, why are these two sentences just really important, right? If civilization is not to decay utterly, it is our vital need to, and then we're talking about to function from absolute love, to give absolute love. This is not pessimism. Consciousness that absolute Christ love only can save us is the most optimistic piece of honesty we can face. Why are these important? Because it gives this foundational aspect of absolute love that I've talked about in previous episodes, but it's highlighting the fact that absolute love is the only way you can make a society that's not based around selfishness and self-centeredness. Absolute love is the only way you can function from a place of genuine kindness, compassion, concern, empathy, and love for other people. Anything else won't work. It has to come from a place of love, because that's the only thing that gets us out of center. That's the only thing that gets us out of the middle of things. That's the only thing that doesn't make us just selfish, self-serving individuals. So when we actually do that, we can continue to grow, right? Because we're not just pitting each other against each other, right? Instead of saying, I only love you if you have these check marks, right? If you have this box checked, you're in my same political affiliation, or you're in the same race as me, or you're in the you have the same sexual orientation, or whatever it might be, right? Recognizing and loving people on the basis of being human beings that are dignity of worth and respect. That's where the foundation is. And that's where we have to function from. But when we lose that, we get wrapped up in our ideology, and then suddenly we're just destroying ourselves from the inside with conflict, with disagreements, with judgment, with condemnation, with hatred and vitriol. And I'm not speaking for one side or the other side, because both sides do this. And it doesn't matter what demographic I'm talking about, or what bipartisan thing I'm talking about, right? Because this happens in race, religion, sex, whatever it is. politics, all of it have this problem right now. And we need to go back to a place of recognizing the dignity and worth of another human being and then functioning from there. But instead, everyone wants to take everything personally and make decisions based on that are really harmful. And we've seen this happen. We've seen just countries destroy themselves. We've seen it happen in our own country at times. Here in the United States. People didn't know for me, but it's been demonstrated over and over and over again that when we lose this place of absolute love, which is the kindness and consideration for our fellow man, our neighbor, our family members, right? Suddenly it all just gets destroyed. We become selfish, self-centered people that are worried about taking for ourselves only. And that's never a good place to be. So this principle of absolute love is the foundational piece for how we need to conduct ourselves, not only personally, but as a family, as a community, as a state, and as a country, is from a place of absolute love. And it's not, you can't go inject it into the federal level. Everyone has to start from the ground level and move up. This is something that has to actually come from within on the individual level, and then practiced on the individual level. Because all the institutions that are made, whether it be churches, whether it be governments, whether it be companies, businesses, nonprofits, every human institution is merely just a makeup of human characteristics. And those are the characteristics of those who are employed there, who occupy those positions. So if everybody is practicing from a place of absolute love, that will be brought into that institution, whatever it is. But as everyone is selfish and self-centered and running on fear and ego and pride and all of these other things, then guess what? That's what the establishment is. That's what the entity will function as. So it needs to be done on an individual basis. And then the changes can come that need to come. And we have every opportunity to start doing that if we just stop hating each other. It's kind of heartbreaking. So we have to practice this solution which is absolute love, and bring that in with us. So, but to do that, guess what we have to do? Acknowledge that there's a problem. So the majority of people will not face squarely even the worst pressing problems. I was in that boat. They hope that in some way an unexpected salvation will appear from somewhere, sometime, somehow soon, and put the world's affairs perfectly straight. And in consequence, with little or no effort on their part, they will be quite happy and comfortable again. Now, I relate to that so much. Gosh, I relate to that so much. Especially while I was using, but this is such a relevant statement today. And people think, the thing is, people think they're addressing issues, and I don't think they're addressing actual issues. They're addressing ones that are convenient for them to address. They're not actually turning and facing the reality of what they need to face, which is usually looking at themselves, which is usually looking at their own motivations, which is usually looking at their own place of love and what they hold in their hearts and what the mission they're trying to accomplish here, right? The majority of people will not face squarely even the most pressing problems. Most just want to avoid their problems through distraction and pleasure, right? Binge watching TV shows, getting wrapped up in political conflict, gossiping about neighbors, playing video games, drinking alcohol, using substances, right? Getting wrapped up in dating and this and that and losing yourself in relationships, right? Like there's so many ways we can avoid. So many ways we can avoid. And I did all of them. I did all of them. Sometimes I still do some of them, but it's a lot less toxic. It's a lot less unhealthy. And I address it when I realize it too now. But when I was at my worst, I did probably every single one of these things to distract myself and avoid my problems. And when I say avoid my problems, I'm talking about anything, because everything was a problem to me, right? Like I avoided certain people's phone calls. I avoided opening my mail because I didn't want to see the bills, because I wasn't making money, because I was spending my money on places and things I shouldn't be spending them on, right? I didn't address any of my health issues because I didn't want to acknowledge that they were going on. Well, honestly, I thought I wouldn't be around for the fruition of them, right? I didn't want to even broach the subject of my work because I was working, but it wasn't good. Everyone was knowing I was doing something wrong. I was taking advantage of people left and right. It wasn't healthy. I was a selfish, self-centered bastard to many people. But I couldn't face it. I avoided seeing it. I would avoid people. I would avoid places. I would avoid anything I had to avoid and distract myself from, and just delay. And I would just blame. I would blame so much on other people when it was all my own fault. Other people would take actions because I had harmed them, I had wronged them, and then I would consider them terrible people, and I would make up this story in my head so I could avoid feeling the guilt, right? I avoided my own emotional state for a very long time, or at least I was trying to. I avoided the topic of God for years, right? I just wanted to run. I wanted to blame everyone else for my problems. I just thought the world was unfair to me, right? I thought that I just got dealt a bad hand. And it turns out that's not true. I would just blame, justify, to ignore it. And I would harm people along the way. And I remember thinking, if the world just changed enough that I would be okay, I wouldn't have to do all this anymore. I wouldn't have to use the substances I was using. I wouldn't have to drink these things. I wouldn't have to hurt these people. I wouldn't have to take advantage of those who loved me anymore. It's the world's fault, I would say. And I'm just waiting for the world to change. Newsflash for anyone who's waiting for the world to change: it doesn't work that way. The world will always be the world. In one form or another, it will never... Well, maybe it'll be perfect at some point, but I don't think in the immediate future it will. So if you're waiting for the world to change, you're going to be waiting a while. So I'd suggest that you take a look at what you actually can change, which is you. Because that's the way that's what I had to do. And it turns out the world is a pretty beautiful place to be. As long as I get my stuff out of the way. As long as I face squarely even the most pressing problem. Right? If I do that, the world's a pretty good place to be, you know. The other way to be is this selfish and self-centered way of thinking. And it always ended up with me being a victim, right? And then if everyone does this, right? If everyone avoids and just hopes that someone or something will fix your problems one day and you never have to change, right? It's just a lot of people running around hurting each other because that's what they think is the only thing that they can do. And they perceive everything as injustices, and they're projecting their own self-made injustices onto the world. Like the world did it to them. I know because I did it. I know because that's where I was. I saw the world through these tainted lenses. It just developed into this misery and hatred. And, but I made it all up. I was delusional. That's the thing. This is all delusional. This is all not living in the reality that's actually happening right now. This is all not actually facing and acknowledging the real problems, the real issues in your life. That at least that was my experience. I wasn't living in reality anymore. I was lying to myself and using things to remove myself from reality. It's not always just drugs and alcohol. Like I said, it can be many, many things that'll distract us from actually participating in our own lives, right? But it's delusional. We aren't even really there. That's the insane part. We aren't even really there participating in the world anymore. We just hate it and wish it would change so we could feel comfortable. Now, how selfish is that? How self-centered is that? So, it's not always fun being in reality, but it's gives me some opportunity to change. I used to be a person that would scoff at the idea of actually helping and leave it to others to handle. I wouldn't actually take the initiative to do anything. I wouldn't actually take any action, right? I would want to just demand it, or I just would hope that someone would do something so I would feel better, right? But what's also interesting is I would take up these battles. I would go to these hills to die on, as they say, when I couldn't get myself together. I was trying to tell the world how to live and how to run itself. And I had all these thoughts about what's right and what's wrong. And I couldn't practice any of them in my own life. I wasn't able to actually execute on any of it. Right? So a big thing about this is if you want to actually go and help the world, you got to make sure your own house is in order. You've got to make sure you are doing okay. You've got to make sure that you are practicing what you preach in an unhypocritical way. You have to be functioning from a place of absolute love in everywhere in your life, right? I think it's a James Allen book I was reading, and he talks about you can't wallow about the problems happening halfway around the world when you can't even correct what you're doing here. It's a false signaling. I guess there's a term for it. It's virtue signaling. It's like, I'm such a good person. Look at how upset I am of that over there, but you're sending money over there, but you can't even correct what you've got going on here. You can't even get your own house in order. So we need to make sure that if we're trying to take action, it needs to be done appropriately first. I can't fix the world when I'm under the influence of drugs and alcohol all the time. It doesn't work that way. I wanted it to. I tried to, but it never worked. Turns out I had to address me first. Then I had to address my immediate family. Then I had to address my community. Then I had to address more, and then I could bring what I know and the truth to a wider audience. And that's where I'm at now, trying to help other people. Not because I think I think I've got an idea of how to live. I've had an experience of how to do these things, right? And I've had an experience on how to change of living a selfish and self-centered life to one that's much more others-centered now. I don't run away from the problems anymore, right? I take actions today from a place of absolute love to the best of my ability. And if I find a discrepancy, I address it. I don't take actions from fear and resentment or anger anymore. And we need to make sure that's not what's driving us. Because there's a lot of people today thinking they're doing right, but they're operating from anger and hatred and insecurity and fear. And if that's where you're coming from, it's never the right thing to do. Sorry, it never is. So we need to make sure we're building a solid foundation, taking the actions we need to take for ourselves and those around us who love us, and then building. And we need to make sure we're coming from a place of absolute love. We need to face our issues head on, our own issues head on. This next piece, but it is not quite so easy as all that to bring civilization at its ebb tide back to the full flood of content and prosperity. What they're saying there is the tide's going out, right? The water is pulling back, right? Might not feel as plentiful. It might not feel as abundant. It might not feel as good and wholesome right now, right? So it's not really so easy to turn that around, right? The last thing we just read was we're waiting for someone else to fix it for us. It doesn't work that way, just so we can feel comfortable, right? A lot of people take their convenience and comfort for granted. I think it's just always going to be like that. There's been many countries that thought that, and guess what? It wasn't. Right? So we can't just wait around and hope it's going to get better. We have a responsibility to actually take healthy actions and do the work on ourselves. And when we all do the work on ourselves, guess what? Everything changes. Everything goes up, right? Everything goes in a healthy, loving direction if we start all functioning from a place of absolute love. But it's not easy. It's not quite so easy, they say. It requires sacrifice. It requires initiative. It requires a belief in something greater than yourself to be of service to, right? We can't just wait around and hope it gets better. We can't. Because that's actually us absconding our responsibility. That's us abandoning what we've been assigned to actually do. Absolute love says that we take the right action because it is right, not because it's convenient. And it has to be coming from a place of absolute love, though. Don't be a martyr. Please don't put yourself in a position just so you feel self-righteous. When you do the right thing for the right reason, you'll know it because there's peace. There's a faith and a trust that you're doing it while you're doing it. But yeah, it's not always convenient. So, again, we're going back into the solution, though. So to make its scales balance again, the world needs to face its problems honestly and to recognize what the power of Christ's love can do. Honesty, that word comes up again. Honesty is crucial to this whole thing. Honesty, integrity, reality, those things are all loving things, right? So human beings, if we're doing things for ourselves, we will make things worse because we're trying to make it fit our own agenda, right? Which is never a healthy thing to do. We put ourselves in a lot of bad positions because of it, right? So even if we are desiring to make the world better, right? Even if we think we're doing it for the right reasons, if it's to be selfish and self-serving, right? That's the best we can be without the help of God. It usually will start decaying. It'll usually start fracturing, right? So we need to recognize that it needs to be this absolute love from God. They call it Christ love, right? This pure, wholesome, fully embodied love that needs to be motivating our actions, because it doesn't always feel like we're doing the right thing. It doesn't always feel like what we're going to do will directly benefit me. And at the end of the day, that's okay. But it's taken me a long time to get to that point where, hey, if I do this, it might be inconvenient. Hey, if I do this, I know it's the right thing to do, but I might not like how it makes me feel. Well, that's okay. We need to actually function from a place of Christ love, absolute love, righteous love, to make a lasting, permanent, effective change for the good and the godly ways. We have to function from there for that. but this comes from an honest acknowledgement that we can't do it well of our own action. Like, this is really important. That honesty, we have to be honest and take a look at things and say, I need help with this. I need to give this to God and function from a place of absolute love and trust him with the outcome. Take the right actions. Come from a place of love and kindness and compassion and consideration, right? Do that. And then trust that what is right will happen. We have to have this on acknowledgement of the world and the situations that we're existing in. How many people give more than a passing thought to the foolish administration of the world's or even their own country's affairs, the ineffectiveness of godless governments and institutions and laws for which every individual is directly responsible as a citizen? Patriotism is not enough. Fearless, boundless love of God is the only key. So, this feels like a loaded paragraph, or a couple sentences in this paragraph, especially right now. There's so much in there, right? And it's saying we have a responsibility to actually be considerate of what's happening in the world and actually be considerate of what we're helping be a part of and what we're helping build and create and the effect that we're actually having, right? Has everyone given a passing thought to the foolish administration of the world's or even their country's affairs, right? Like, what's actually happening in this world? What's actually going on? Do you think things are functioning from a place of absolute love, or is everyone functioning from a place of fear, resentment, and anger? Hatred, misery, right? So we have to be honest about what's actually happening. And then we have to take an honest look at the actions of the powers that be and see what they're actually doing. Are they putting a net good into it or a net negative, right? Are they actually helping people or are they hindering people? And this is I understand this is where the divisiveness happens, because each side thinks they're right, especially politically right now. But understanding that regardless of what side you land on, there is a loving path to walk. And that's what we should all be aiming for. We shouldn't be aiming for validation of our own pride and ego and a reaffirmation of our own opinions. We need to bring ourselves to a place of absolute love in our hearts and then function from there. Right? I was talking earlier how the institutions, everything will change when that starts happening. When people really embody absolute love in all the actions that they take, everything will change, right? Any man-made institution to serve only man and man's selfishness will eventually corrupt and decay, like I said in the beginning, right? Resources will be misused, wrong actions taken, restrictive and unhealthy laws will be made, right? Because they are made out of fear, pride, ego, and identity. They're serving man, they're not serving God, right? So these last lines here. Patriotism is not enough. Fearless, boundless love of God is the only key, right? This is important, because if you're patriotic over something that is unhealthy, it's not the right thing. Patriotism isn't enough. But if you're patriotic because you believe that it's functioning from a place of absolute love and it's trying to function in a way that it would find pleasing to God, then patriotism is healthy, right? But God has to come first. Absolute love has to be a priority, because out of that, a healthy sense of patriotism can come too, right? Patriotism for the sake of patriotism isn't great. There's a lot of people out there that believe that their affiliations are fantastic and they have the best things in the world. And I'm not talking about people even in the United States, right? And they're harming a lot of people. This is happening in a variety of ways all around the world, right? Love of God, absolute love, is the only key. That's where we need to function from. And if you, as a nation, as a country, are functioning from there, heck yes, be patriotic. Support it. We need to make sure that's where you're coming from first. And if you can do that, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of good that can be done there too. A lot of people that can be helped. So, all right. Well, there we go. That's the end of that paragraph. There was a lot in there. A lot of hot topics today. A lot of relevant to today's political climate, religious climate, world stage, I think. And the funny thing is, it's all the same, isn't it? It all comes down to be absolute love. That's the solution for all of it. It seems so simple. If me 8 years ago was hearing me talk about this, I would have laughed at myself. It's a beautiful thing to realize how much I've changed through this journey, to actually believe that absolute love is the right actions to be taken, is the right place to be functioning from. To believe that selfishness and self-centeredness and self-absorption and prioritizing me and mine first is not the healthy thing to do. It's a whole new way of living for a guy like me. So, but that's it. Thank y'all for joining me, and I'm looking forward to next week. So, until next time, thanks.